The Half-Life universe is full of terrifying sentient life forms. In the early 2000s, planet Earth came across a new species that used their natural biology to control the humans they met, which in turn led to a horrific existence. Where did these parasites come from? How were they weaponized by the Combine to solidify their hold over planet Earth? And how did the victims of these feel when they became hosts? Here, we explore in the lore and story behind the Headcrabs and Zombies of Half-Life. Far away from planet Earth, the homeworld of the Gonarch and its children connected to the border world of Xen, a place between dimensions and space. During this connection, some of this species traversed across and explored this new land of floating islands. However, this connection was limited and left these new inhabitants stranded. Nothing was native to Xen. All plant life and creatures had traveled across, just like the Gonarch had. This was a unique place with a diverse, dangerous ecosystem formed from travelers across dimensions. As it wandered the extraordinary islands of Xen, the Gonarch, a large, powerful creature on 4 legs with a reproductive sac in its center, gave birth to countless tiny headcrabs as it moved. These tiny creatures had just begun their first life stage, and the Gonarch was what they would become in their final stage. This of course depended on their decisions as they grew to reach that point. As the creator of these many children, the Gonarch became highly aggressive towards anything that came near it and attacked on sight with a charge, or through the creation of an acidic projectile. The children, dubbed headcrabs by humanity, were much smaller than their parents, and over time grew to the size of a pumpkin, around 8.5 pounds, and wandered Xen. On Earth, the Black Mesa Research Facility discovered the border world of Xen as they experimented with teleportation technology. Following this, they set up survey teams to explore the islands and constructed labs to study the samples of Xen these teams brought back. Within the Advanced Biological Research Lab and the Gamma Labs, the scientists took a keen interest in the headcrab. Here, just like every other Xenian creature they acquired, the Black Mesa personnel attempted to understand the biology and life cycle of the headcrab. This was a particularly interesting specimen as they did not look threatening in appearance, but the scientists did notice that these heavy balls of flesh with legs attempted to leap at anything around them that looked even vaguely similar to a humanoid. Unknown to the scientists, these creatures were incredibly dangerous. They discovered from observation and analysis that the headcrabs were capable of surviving on both plant-based and meat diets, and although they were small, their legs allowed them to clumsily propel their bodies a great distance of an average of 10 feet at a target as they attempted to reach them. Their jumps at this point were guided by 6 eyes that helped them line up their attacks, 3 eyes just below each of their front legs. Black Mesa didn't add the eyes to their revamped model, so here is the original lore-friendly model from Half-Life. Flipped over, the Black Mesa scientists discovered the headcrab's most impressive, or should I say most terrifying feature: a large, gaping mouth that allowed the creatures to feed on their prey and hold on tight to their target. Inside their mouth, the scientists also found a hidden beak that, upon study, allowed them to take in nutrients, and it even had the strength to break through a human skull. On Xen, the survey teams also observed where the headcrabs fell on the food chain in this unique ecosystem. They were placed near the bottom as another species, the Vortigaunt, caught them, kept them in cages, and roasted them on an open fire. The survey team also noticed that the bull squids seemingly had a natural disdain for the headcrabs and hunted them down on sight. The analysis of this species had given Black Mesa a great insight into the border world of Xen, but there was just one more feature the headcrabs had not yet displayed: something horrific. The exploration of Zen gave Black Mesa a greater understanding of how the border world functioned. Unfortunately, this mission also came with great risk. Zen was a dangerous place, and casualties happened from time to time. The personnel also learned the hard way what happened when the headcrab managed to successfully leap onto a human. If a headcrab were to make a successful leap, it used its weight and muscles around its mouth to firmly fix itself into position. At this point, the victim had little chance to push the creature off. Ready for the next stage, the headcrab used its hidden beak to break through the skull to gain access to the brain. This is where the true nightmare began. With exposure to the human brain, the headcrabs tapped into the brainstem and took over their basic motor functions, which in turn allowed them to control the human body. They were the perfect parasite. As a result of this connection between human and headcrab, the human's biology changed. Those unfortunate enough to witness this watched as the host's flesh deteriorated as their skin and organs broke down and their fingers grew out into sharp claws. However, they still retained the ability to walk and interact with the environment around them. Even when injured, the hosts remained upright due to their connection to the parasite. In some cases, the host's ribcage even ripped open to reveal the slight biological changes the headcrab had made as it formed a stronger hold over the unwilling host. This transformation process was noted to take anywhere from several seconds to several minutes, depending on the host and the will of the headcrab. The worst part about this was that the host was kept alive and conscious throughout the entire procedure as they felt every ounce of pain, desperate for escape. Although having lost control over most of their body, the hosts were still able to plead for help, but as a result of the headcrab's influence, their desperate pleas came out backwards.
Yeah, God, help me!
This process had a harrowing effect on the host's body, but some scientists wondered if a host could survive if the headcrab was removed. Even now, many years later, we simply do not know. We could speculate that it would depend on how far into the transformation the parasite was removed. The further along, the less likely. With the initial variation of the human and headcrab combination labelled as the zombie, the scientists also saw over time that as these zombies matured, some grew stronger, their claws grew even longer, they became more aggressive, and their bodies adapted to the biological substances injected from the headcrab. This variation was labelled the gnome. With full control of a human host, the headcrab zombies became instantly hostile and attempted to kill everything around them. As they wandered around, they did not appear to be fazed by potential dangers in the area. It was later noted that even when they came into contact with fire, sharp objects, or the various other dangers of the world, the zombies continued in their path to kill a target. These parasites appeared to be unfazed by the damage to their hosts' bodies. This could not be said for the humans who screamed in pain and begged for this awful existence to end. They had been through so much and were still very much conscious. This symbiotic relationship between headcrab and host appeared to be a perfect match, even though the species had never met before the discovery of Zen. This suggested that while these creatures came from another world, their world did have a process very similar to the attachment of headcrab and host. Regardless, more of humanity would soon become aware of the headcrab and how they could control a human. In the early 2000s, the Black Mesa Research Facility conducted an experiment that went very wrong, which led to a resonance cascade. This essentially meant that a hole was ripped in space between Earth and Zen, and as a result, the creatures of Zen were pulled through to Earth. A leader of Zen, the Nylanth, also took advantage of this situation and sent through its forces to conquer this new world. Over the following hours, the Headcrabs once again had to learn a new world and attack the scared personnel as they attempted to escape this facility on the brink of complete failure. With so many Headcrabs scattered across the claustrophobic halls of Black Mesa, it did not take long for them to find hosts to control, and soon, the halls filled with Headcrab zombies, each human in excruciating pain under the control of their new masters. To the luck of these humans, the next day, a military force, with the help of a mysterious figure, activated a thermonuclear device and released them from their pain as the entire Black Mesa research facility was purged of all life. Shortly after the fall of Black Mesa, one of the scientists, Dr. Gordon Freeman, managed to take out the leader of the Xenian invasion and close the rift between Earth and Xen. Although the resonance cascade had ended, the Headcrabs that had been pulled through to the rest of Earth had no way to return home and were here to stay. Along with the other Xenian creatures, the stranded aliens fought with humanity as this was their new home. In humanity's weakened state, another alien force, the Combine, invaded the planet and successfully accepted the submission of humanity in a mere 7 hours. Over the following years, the Combine adapted the planet to solidify their hold over humanity. They created settlements to hold the humans and fought with the remaining Xenian lifeforms to keep them outside of these safe havens. During this time, a resistance formed against the Combine, and as opposing forces, they worked on ways to fight against each other. One of the leaders of the resistance, Dr. Isaac Kleiner, captured a headcrab and managed to domesticate it by removing its beak. This did not remove Lamar's need to jump onto the heads of the humans she interacted with, but she could no longer hurt them. Over a decade after the Combine's invasion and the Headcrab's migration to Earth, resistance scientists noticed a change in the Headcrab's biology. The 6 eyes they had once used to target a foe simply disappeared. This could have been a design choice by Valve between games to make the Headcrabs appear more menacing, or this could have been an evolutionary change to adapt to their new environment on planet Earth, and as a result, would have learned to use other methods to navigate the wasteland. The most interesting part about this time period was that the population of the planet discovered new variations of the headcrab, and there were 3 potential reasons as to why they had not been spotted before. The first, they had just not been discovered yet. The second, an evolutionary change as a result of their new environment. And the third, they had been developed as weapons by the Combine. The Resistance discovered a subspecies of headcrab that had the ability to withstand large amounts of damage and ammunition. Labeled the Armoured Headcrab, this variation appeared to have been preyed upon by a Xenian fungus, and as a result, this floral parasitic growth had managed to attach itself to the headcrab and grown on it. This allowed the growth to spread its seeds around the locations the headcrab traveled to, and in return, provided the headcrab with protection against anything that attempted to harm it. This was a mutually beneficial relationship. However, this hard layer of protection only applied to the top of the headcrab and still left its mouth vulnerable, even more vulnerable than a standard headcrab. If this headcrab were able to take hold of a host, the zombie acted in a similar way to the standard. The Resistance just found these harder to kill due to their armoured shell. The Lightning Dog, also known as Revivers or Runners, were discovered by Alex Vance during her time in the quarantine zone. These creatures share similarities with the headcrabs in terms of their size and the ability to manipulate the human structure, and are thought to either be cousins or another subspecies of the headcrab. These had a bioluminescent skin, a tail, and their limbs were connected by a thin sheet of tissue. This allowed them to move quickly as they attempted to find a host when under attack. It should also be noted that the entity name inside of the Half-Life Alyx game files is NPC Headcrab Runner. These terrifying variants had the ability to manipulate electrical currents, which in turn allowed them to affect the machinery around them, and they even fired electrical spit at their targets. As a lone creature, the lightning dog could injure those around it, but it was more dangerous when it was paired with a human. The lightning dog's behavior was similar to the headcrab, but they did have some differences. The lightning dog was only shown to be able to take control of a dead headcrab zombie, and instead of taking control through the brain, they were able to burrow into the chest cavity to revive their host. These electrified zombies were able to take a lot more damage than their other variations. On a more interesting note, these were aware of how much damage their hosts could withstand, and if the humans started to break down, they left their host and looked for another one. To fight back, the electric zombie had the ability to fire bursts of electricity to wound their attacker, and use flashes of light and smoke to distract their enemies when cornered in an attempt to escape. When killed, the lightning dogs left an electric orb. These orbs were also noted to be compatible with Combine technology. This could indicate that the Combine either designed some of their technology around the biology of this creature, it was a coincidence, or the Combine had developed these creatures themselves. Interestingly enough, it should be noted that the Armoured Headcrab and the Lightning Dog were not spotted in City 17 or the Wasteland approximately 5 years later, which suggests that they either died out, evolved into something else, or were just not seen by the Resistance. Although not a zombie created as a combination of human and headcrab, during her adventure through the quarantine zone of City 17, Alyx Vance discovered Jeff in an old distillery. Jeff was a zombie that had had a similar affliction to the Armoured Headcrab, in which the parasitic Xenian flora had managed to infect him with their spores. As a result of this fungus, it adapted this hazmat worker's biology and split open his bloated head to form a large mouth with sharp teeth. As the infection continued to adapt him, his fingers grew out similar to a headcrab zombie, and huge growths grew on his skin. Due to this, the parasite that controlled Jeff became highly aggressive. Without eyes, he grew to rely on his excellent hearing to navigate his surroundings and attacked anything that came into contact with him, regardless of whether they were from Earth or Xen. As a symbiote of human and Xenian flora, Jeff was extremely strong and excreted spores and spread them across the distillery. Jeff was not a standard zombie. Currently, he is the only known unfortunate human afflicted by a Xenian floral parasite. Approximately 20 years after the Combine's invasion of planet Earth, the Resistance frequently came across 3 variations of the headcrab: the standard, fast, and poison. The armoured and lightning dog have not been documented after this point. The fast variant was once again very similar to the standard headcrab, but as in its name, it was much faster. The Resistance could tell the difference between the standard, as these were slimmer, smoother, and had much longer legs with claws at the end of them. At this point, the quick identification of the subspecies of headcrab could save a life. These headcrabs also appear to be more intelligent than the others, as they planned attacks. With the use of their longer legs, they held onto surfaces and waited for their prey to come to them. This gave them an advantage, as they simply waited for a potential host to walk below, drop down onto their head, and began the process to take over. These were also noted to travel in groups to maximize their efforts to injure or attach to a host. When coupled to a victim, these headcrabs dramatically adjusted the biology of the host even more than the standard headcrab. This change left the host only with their skeletal frame and muscles. This in turn allowed them to move extremely quickly as they climbed buildings, jumped, ran on 4 legs, and howled to alert others of prey. Once again, these travelled in groups to maximise their efforts to take down their prey with their claws. All of this while their host was in excruciating pain. The final known subspecies discovered was the poison headcrab. This variant could be perceived as the most dangerous by far, as it used its fangs to deploy a deadly stream of neurotoxin into its prey. These were identified by the resistance by their darker skin, hairy legs, and coloured markings similar to that of a spider. To counter this deadly neurotoxin, the resistance had to rely on antidotes to counter the effects of it. Luckily, these were also noted to be the slowest of all headcrab variants and even gave out a recognisable sound, a rattle, when it spotted a victim. This essentially gave the potential prey who recognised this noise a warning to leave before they were attacked. These were also discovered to be the most intelligent of the headcrab species and actively hunted their prey. They were aware of the dangers of the natural elements, analysed their situation if they were in danger, and if necessary, retreated in order to survive. After they weakened their prey, this variation did just what the others did, became one with a human. However, this connection was slightly different. Their host swelled up and fell victim to multiple poison headcrabs to feed on as they wandered around in pain. Upon discovery of a potential target, the headcrabs would leave the host to poison them. This weakened state then allowed the host to finish off the attack. That was unless they wanted to use the new victim as another host. Although the poison zombie did attempt to strike at foes with its claws, the resistance theorized that these hosts were used more for a breeding purpose, to lay eggs inside to create more poison headcrabs. This would make sense due to the number of headcrabs attached to the host, but that is just one of the many theories of this complex parasite. As the resistance grew stronger and recruited more members across the wasteland, the Combine had to become more creative in how they dealt with them. As they continued to explore and analyze the uses of the Xenian creatures that have found themselves on Earth after the Resonance Cascade, they used the headcrabs to create something new, the headcrab shell. This shell was essentially a hollow projectile filled with captured headcrabs that the Combine could send off to resistance bases to take them out from afar. The best part about this was that when it landed inside of enemy lines, the payload opened and released an infestation of headcrabs. The Headcrab Shell initiative was responsible for not only the fall of some of the resistance bases across the Underground Railroad, but it was also instrumental in the fall of Ravenholm, once a strong resistance base reduced to a nightmare town full of zombies. The thought of using these small creatures in general worked for the Combine, as they were able to take out resistance bases with little effort. Unfortunately, working with creatures like this was still dangerous for them. During the uprising, as the Combine lost control of City 17, some of their human police faction, the Combine Overwatch, also fell prey to their own biological weapons. These headcrab zombies were then referred to by the Resistance as Zombines, modified Combine humans under the control of a headcrab. Instead of desperate pleas for help, those around only heard the ramblings of a broken human through a vocoder. Born from a gonarch, the headcrab came from a faraway world and through many migrations landed on Earth and attempted to live. Although small, they were feared by most of the population of the planet, which was made worse after the Combine used them as biological weapons. The headcrabs went through many variations: standard, armoured, lightning dog, fast and poison. The armoured was a result of a Xenian fungal infection, but the rest were likely created by the Combine to control humanity. With this many variations out there, what are the chances that evolution created even more dangerous headcrabs that no one has seen yet? The headcrab had two potential paths to go down in their life cycle. continued to grow until they eventually turned into a gonarch to bring more headcrabs into the universe, or find a humanoid and live out the rest of their days as a zombie. It should be noted that the Vortigaunt, another humanoid species, were never shown to fall prey to these parasites. This could have been because they were not compatible, or the Vortigaunt were just too good at defending themselves. Regardless, there are still many questions that plague this parasitic species. Did the Combine really create the new variants? Can all of them grow into gonarchs? And what species did they have on their homeworld that they used as hosts? The headcrab species, as well as the rest of the Half-Life universe, is still full of mystery. Maybe one day we will find some answers to these questions. Welcome back everyone. I took a week away to spend time with family for the holiday break, and it feels good to be back writing and putting videos together. I hope you all had a great holiday. The Headcrab was, I think, the second Half-Life lore video I put together, but looking back, there was so much information I did not include. I wanted this refresh to be more of a deep dive to explore each variant, how they came that way, and their impact on the Half-Life universe in general. The zombies just came as a part of that, and you cannot talk about zombies without mentioning Jeff. Also, I have said the word headcrab so many times at this point that it does not feel like a real word. The headcrabs are an iconic part of Half-Life, so I wanted to do them right. This is going to be a big year for the channel. I have so many games lined up with amazing topics to cover. I have taken a ton of your suggestions from the comments too. I will still be covering Half-Life every 2 weeks as usual. These new games will just slot in between. We have Quake, Wolfenstein, Doom, Left 4 Dead, Team Fortress, and a few others. I'll also pop in a few Portal 2, maybe some of the fan games. I also intend to continue with the Half-Life 2 beta content. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, I do appreciate it. I think that was everything I wanted to say, so please share it, please like it, subscribe if you are interested in deeper dives, and leave a comment for the algorithm. It would help a lot. Finally, I would like to thank my gold tier patrons and channel members: Jonas, Lewis, Queen Arby, Fluffy the Dragon, Chicken Guy 791, Ruben Mendoza, Mosfalit, Montana Tusker, Laza Lowell, Duke, Toadnut, Oren X, and Noah. Thank you guys, I appreciate it so much. What did you think of this lore? Which version of the headcrab did you prefer? And which Left 4 Dead topic would you like me to cover first? Let me know in the comments below. This is where our story ends. Check back next week for a new one.